The best way to oppose the new Cold War with China is to be the most militant opponents of every U.S. war. And U.S. wars are coming thick and fast. If Israel succeeds in crushing Palestinian resistance based on U.S. financial, political, military support, then U.S. imperialism is stronger on a world scale. So Palestine fights for all of us. Their resistance has ignited a global resistance. Before October 7th, Israel, with 75 years of U.S. backing, seemed invincible, all powerful. Now, the IDF has been frustrated at every turn by the indomitable spirit of Palestinian resistance. They face ambushes without end. Nothing is stable, nothing is secure. There's a sea change in the US, where for the first time, a majority of the population is supportive of Palestine and finds himself in sharp opposition to US policy. There are millions of people in the streets. Let's build on that. There's global outrage at the US role as the enabler of this genocide. On a world scale, people stand with Palestine. Their resistance is our resistance. The liberation of Palestine will be an important step in the liberation of humanity. October 7th opened a new chapter in the worldwide class war. Israel's regime of genocidal crimes against the people of Gaza demands international solidarity. Now, faced with this unwinnable quagmire, the response for the US and Israel is to expand the war. US bombing of Muslim people in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, it goes on and on. This week, 3 days ago, they blew up the two main natural gas pipelines in Iran, leaving millions of Iranians without heat and cooking fuel in winter. This is the way the US and Israel fight their wars, targeting essential infrastructure of civilians. That's the way they always do it. There's this global outrage of what Israel is doing right now in Rafah has ripped the mask off. US and NATO countries have cut off all food, medical care, and schools to all Palestinians, even in Jordan, Lebanon, the West Bank, by cutting off the funding to UNRWA. So when US media and politicians claim they want to protect Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang, the sheer hypocrisy is no longer believable. This false charge is a big weapon in war on China, and it's demanding compliance of all US allies against China. Just for example, there are thousands of German Volkswagens, Audis, Porsche cars impounded on ships at US ports because there's a small little Chinese electronic part in these cars. So now Germany must pay US fines, remove the offending part, and agree with US charges on Xinjiang to get their own cars. This is toward US allies. There's bales of clothing made in Vietnam and Malaysia that have to go through isotopic testing. If even a thread of cotton comes from Xinjiang, it's all destroyed by US customs. Supposedly because there's slave labor in Xinjiang, although the cotton industry in Xinjiang is fully mechanized. So we need to militantly oppose the wanton use of economic sanctions on China and on 40 countries, a third of the world population. It's such a powerful weapon of economic destabilization. But sanctions enforcement is now widening US isolation. It's intensifying trade wars with their own imperialist partners, or are they rivals? Much to the frustration of US imperialism, the sanctioned countries are now finding new roads to cooperation and change. That's the game changer. Now, everyone on this panel has been to China and seen the remarkable accomplishments. I wish I could spend my whole talk on this. We all return full of enthusiasm on what's possible. I've also traveled to Gaza. I've seen the bombed buildings, the open sewers, the lack of even potable waters. Israel has bombed 6 times with full US backing since Hamas won the democratic elections in 2007. And I've seen what calculated destruction by the US has done in Iraq. It's undescribable. I've seen Syria under US bombing, a third of the population displaced refugees, infrastructure targeted, always the schools and hospitals destroyed. And I've seen Xinjiang on a wonderful delegation with Li Suhin, vibrant, peaceful cities of Kashgar and Urumqi with full markets, lush countryside, prosperous villages. The contrast can't be greater. Now, another point I do want to raise is that stopping a new Cold War with China means opposing US-NATO war in Ukraine. It's 2 years ago this week, February 24th, US-NATO military alliance that then appeared to be the largest military alliance the world had ever seen. 3 million armed forces, the largest array of tanks, of missiles, of aircraft, the most largest combined economic power. There have been 25 years of NATO expansion steadily east to the borders of Russia. NATO seemed unstoppable. Ukraine, with full US backing and a military coup, shelled the Russian population of Ukraine and the Russian border until Russia responded with a military operation. And actually, NATO was thrilled. US strategies considered regime change in Russia an easy move and a key to their next move, on to China. That's exactly how it was seen, a two-step operation. The most extreme sanctions were quickly rammed through by every member of the G7. This would surely destroy Russia. Regime change seemed inevitable. Biden promised that sanctions against Russia would turn the Russian ruble into rubble. It hasn't succeeded. Instead, the European Union and the NATO alliance is in disarray and economic crisis. And today, literally today, Ukrainian lines are totally collapsing. Adviatka, strategically the most important military stronghold, is being abandoned in the most humiliating rout. Thousands of soldiers just leaving and fleeing. So the US is bogged down and exposed, and a majority of the US population is against any funding to the Ukraine. No lessons are learned. They're going straight forward, and they're ominously gearing up for a new confrontation now with China, even though overwhelmingly the population here is increasingly against US wars. But the largest military budget in history just sailed through Congress. Hundreds of line items, hundreds of billions of dollars on countering the China threat. This is an insane, totally reckless economic system. Capitalism, by its very nature, is expand or die, taking us with them. They really are planning World War III. We should take that seriously. The economy here is totally intertwined with military industries. It's the greatest source of profit. It's an endless subsidy to corporate America. So, is China a threat? China is a threat to US domination. Yes, it is. The working class in China is larger than the US and the EU, the G7, and its politically conscious leadership is steering in another direction. That is a threat. China's very existence as a prosperous, developing country confirms that humanity has another choice. The developing world, the global South, looks to China, not to US imperialism. That's a threat. Peaceful development and trade rather than economic domination. New infrastructure rather than economic strangulation. China is beautiful beyond imagining for anyone coming to the US. In the US, we survive by being forced to step around homeless, desperate people on a daily basis. We see violence every day and have to keep on going. We see lives cut short. We live in such a violent, edgy, ruthless society that it's a stunning experience to be free of that for even a few days. I was struck by the level of enthusiasm and energy, enthusiasm for solving problems that I saw in China. I didn't meet cynical people. That was quite amazing. And then too soon, we're back here. So what should our response be? I want to say it's that we oppose every US war, oppose the hundreds of billions for endless wars. We don't know what will ignite the new crisis, Taiwan, the South China Sea, Xinjiang. But we have to separate ourselves from the class interests of our class enemy on every front. I say that in ending because we're coming into an election period, and we have to break away from this corrupt two-party imperialist system with one political apparatus determined to maintain corporate power. China is leading a new world order, the construction of a new world order. This is a historic moment. Today, the world system is in a moment of transition. It's qualitatively different. The current economic globalization is not about common development or benefits. It's a law of the jungle where only the strongest survive. So the emergence of another kind of globalization, the GDP of the BRICS is already larger than the US and the G7. It's not only the rise, though, of new powerful economies, China, India, Russia, Brazil, South Africa. It's not only economic growth, but it's new forms of exchange and cooperation in the formerly colonized world. The new globalization put forth by Chinese President Xi Jinping, beginning in 2013 with the Belt and Road Initiative, showed a new direction, a different option. That's what's important. We're living through a fundamental, tumultuous transition from a neo-colonial world system with ruthless winner-take-all, a capitalist world economy, global war mentality, and what's emerging is a different kind of world system focused on trade, development, on a more just and democratic global exchange. Currently, inter-imperialist competition is the norm, but we seek an end to the political division of labor between the imperialist core and the neo-colonial periphery, and that is happening. Suddenly, what's attractive in the global South is a real possibility of a more democratic world system characterized by cooperation, by respect for sovereignty. The goal of the BRICS, the Belt and Road Initiative, is to develop new, more inclusive forms of globalization. They want cooperation, equal participation. And that's what China's win-win approach provides, a way to peaceful development, an attempt to build partnership based on dialogue rather than confrontation, engage in trade rather than the debt burden of military alliances. So it's a new vision, people-centered development. How's China able to do it? I'll close on this point. US imperialism is incapable of doing it. Nothing confirms more clearly the socialist root of the Chinese economy. State-owned industries are not relentlessly driven to make a profit every quarter. They're free to think and plan and invest long-term. In a capitalist system, you can't do that. If you don't make an immediate profit every quarter, you're simply replaced. Directors, administrators can't survive. Capitalism must expand and make a profit, or it's out of business. So internally, from here in the US and the global West, we also need to build new type of political relations among the people's organizations based on respect, mutual respect, equality, justice, new levels of cooperation, where solidarity and resistance become a material force when they're harnessed. That's the world we seek. So let's organize collectively. Let's collectively demand hands off China and full solidarity with Palestine. This new world is in birth. Thank you.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.